Hi, Radhika.
Hi, good evening.
Yes. So Radhika, for this mock interview,
Yes.
we have a few members on the board, and a couple of them will be joining soon. In the meanwhile, we'll start your interview. So
Okay.
please state your name, your roll number, and a brief introduction.
My name is Radhika Goyal, and I don't remember my roll number as of now. Um, Brief introduction about myself. I've been born and brought up in Delhi, and I've done my bachelor's in economics from Shri Guru Gobind Singh College of Commerce, Delhi University. Post that, I've done my master's in economics from Delhi School of Economics, and since then, I've been working for almost 2.5 years at MasterCard as a consultant.
Okay, great. So for the further line of questions, I will hand over to Kanish, who will be asking you the next round of questions.
Yes. Hi, Radhika.
Hello.
So, can you sum up the state of the Indian economy in about 1 minute's time?
The current state of Indian economy, if you talk about, is in a flux right now. So, given that we already know that the world is in such a dynamic position, we have war on one side, Ukraine, Russia. We have caused inflation because of that. We have unemployment in the economy, and then there is the bright side, where everybody in the world is talking about how India is the next superpower or how India will be leading the decade in the coming years. So, talking about Indian economy, let's go by the sector wise. If we look at agricultural sector is still a place where it's lacking, and still most number of people are employed, and that's one area where the economy, the world, like the Indian government needs to work on. Looking at the secondary sector, that's the manufacturing sector, that has a lot of focus. And given that the world is looking towards a China plus one policy, so India will be the next destination. From that perspective, yes, we have number of unicorns cropping up, a lot of focus on MSMEs, a lot of uh, like incentives given to this sector. So a lot of push is driven in that sector because they're also planning for exports, trying to reach the 2 trillion target by 2030. So this is the area where the government and the world is also looking at, because yes, we want to be the next manufacturing hub. In terms of service sector, it was always growing and it is still growing, but the leading part is towards the innovation sector. We have a lot of innovation, especially in terms of digital and financial, which is again a bright light when people look towards India. So all in all, India is moving in the right direction, I would like to say. But yes, the current circumstance in the world, it's very important that every step that is taken is treaded carefully. And at the same time, yes, we should be hopeful of the future. But yes, there are nooks and corners where India still needs to work on. And with the digital rupee and all the India's digital stack, the G20 presidency, an extensive focus on the environmental sector, climate change, I think India is a whole package.
All
And
right.
yes,
All right.
yeah,
Thank you. I think that's a little more than 1 minute. You had mentioned the China plus one. Uh,
yes.
so, we've seen a lot of supply chains move to Vietnam in recent years. What more do you think India can do to make sure that we attract more investment towards this country?
India is looked from a perspective that it's a red tapeism country. We know that all the paperwork with respect to exports create a lot of problem. So I think that's one sector that government needs to really, relax those duties, one can say, or the procedure for all of this. Second, we need to have lucrative incentives for production houses to be set up in India. So I think it is more about policies with regard to this, that we need to lure FDI investment more into these sectors, and I think that that's going to promote manufacturing and probably the next manufacturing hub of the world.
All right. Uh, do you think the current account deficit is worrying currently in India's case?
In terms of import, yes, because of inflation and crude oil imports that we have, the import side is going up. And because of the downtrend, the recessionary fear in the economy is leading to a fall in our exports. Plus, the depreciation of the currency vis-a-vis dollar is also leading to that. So, looking from all of these numbers perspective, yes, it is worrisome. But in terms that India is a stable currency with respect to other countries, So I think it's not very worryful because I think this is a phenomena which almost every country in the world is also facing. It should not go worse than that, should be the outlook.
You mentioned that India has a stable currency. Do you think the currency is stable because of fundamentals, or is it RBI's intervention that is keeping it stable? Because we've seen the forex reserves decline very steeply over the course of the last 1 year.
I believe it was RBI's strategic move that although the depreciation will happen because it's the demand of dollar that's essentially increasing. So the fall was not to make it's the shelling out of all the reserves that RBI did was to make sure that the fall was not sudden. It was gradual in nature, so that there was not a sudden shock to the economy. So that was how the fall was that RBI controlled. And yes, the fundamentals are definitely strong, which is keeping our currency stable vis-a-vis other currencies in the world also.
Okay. Do you think the inclusion of the word socialist in India's preamble is justified?
Justified to the extent that the government of India works towards welfare of the country. We have a lot of policies to uplift the lower strata of the economy, and everybody knows that India has like one of the highest populations and the maximum population that is poverty stricken. So yes, it is justified to say, and it plays a very important role that India is a socialist country from that perspective, and we as a country want to develop in a very holistic manner. So all the policies are governed, keeping in mind to uplift people from this section. And yes, it is justified, the socialist.
Do you think a capitalist country or society does not care about welfare of people, or socialist by definition restricts itself to social welfare?
Capitalist, yes, as the word suggests, the driving factor when we say it's a capitalist economy is about profits. That here everything is with regard to market forces, and people or the investment is the goal here. You know, profits is the goal here, and I think that is the reason that India is not a pure socialist economy. We have a combination of the two. So either pure socialism
The
or
goal of
pure.
corporations, like let's say United States is a capitalist country. Uh, the goal of government is not to make profits in a capitalist country. So some people have called for a mixed economy. Do you think India's economy is a mixed economy, or a capitalist economy, or a socialist economy?
India's economy is for sure a mixed economy because we do have the top of the people who have high investments, and they are the one who are actually driving the economy of India. But at the same time, given the population size, the diversity, and the ethnicity of India, government needs to take care of the people at the lower section of the society as well through its welfare programs.
Fair
So
enough.
for India.
So I noticed in your DAF that you had received a certificate of excellence for exhibiting outstanding human values. Could you share your views on what constitutes outstanding human values?
So this was a particular certificate that was awarded to students who, besides their academic performance, had a behavioral impact on the school itself. That is, it's a way of appreciating students that it's not just the marks of the academics that matters. It's the way you deal with people. It's your compassion, your kindness, the way you lead. Maybe it's a particular project, how you interact with your teachers, your friends. So how a holistic human being that you turn out to be is about human values. And for me, this has been the building block. And I'm very grateful to my school, my alma mater, that they inculcated and at the end appreciated to be a more balanced individual. And in life, academics and everything success, yes. But at the end of the day, you are a human being in a society. So your kindness, the way you live a decent life is important. And I think this was one way of the school telling us to keep this alive in our future life once we pass out the school as well.
All right. Thank you, Radhika. I'll pass it on to the next panelist.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kanishk. Nikita, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, sir. Hi, Radhika.
Hello.
So Radhika, you would have heard that the government as well as other private institutions have been saying, and multilaterals as well, that India will become the third largest economy in next 5 to 6 years. Given that the current global economy is going to have a recession as per a lot of estimates in the next year, do you think that it's being over optimistic to say this, that India will be third largest economy given our export side and all of these, the global recession taken into consideration?
Okay. So basically, the way, as I stated in my introduction as well, that the way the world is looking towards India is from different angles. If we look at the production side, although yes, there is a recessionary phase that's coming up in the world, but production will not cease, or the demand will not cease altogether. So in the world, there has to be an economy that is supposed to be growing. So from looking at that dynamics, that if the West is the one receding, and China, due to its zero COVID policy, is again on a downtrodden path, it's the India that becomes the next destination. And not just the destination, but at the same time, the production hub as well. So, as I said, the China plus one policy, that is, yes, all the other countries are now looking towards India for the production. And not just for production, given that India will be the one having the maximum population going on and will surpass China as well, we are also a consumer side as well. So the West will also be looking towards us in terms of their goods. So we'll be the next consumers of the world. So from that perspective, India will be the demand side also and the supply side also, which will balance the economy. Secondly, there are some fundamentals on which India's growth is based on. For instance, the next issue in the world is about climate change. So we all know that agriculture will suffer because of erratic monsoons. We all know that there will be so many countries, the small island countries, which will be submerged in water in few years. So from that perspective, also India is looking towards self-reliance on energy, renewable energy also, in numerous initiatives taken in that perspective. So we are making ourselves independent from the world as well. More of an inward-looking policy, the Atmanirbharta that we talk about. So energy is something we're trying to control. We are trying to boost a lot of production, boost MSMEs, boost our unicorns. So stabilizing.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, can you tell me any two schemes which government has rolled out for bringing in Atmanirbharta in manufacturing or any other sector, if you can imagine? Just tell me two schemes.
In manufacturing, I can look at the EV sector, which is the FAME scheme, where they are trying to promote the sale and the production of electric vehicles. And one is the PM Gati Shakti, where we're trying to improve the logistics, again in the infrastructural realm.
Okay. Okay. So do you think that government, it's a public policy question, that do you think that government should be investing into experimental technologies? Like government has been giving a lot of subsidies for hydrogen cells development and EVs, but this has still not been tested entirely. There are a lot of research still going on in this regard. So a lot of times these capital investments go as a sunk cost. So do you think, as a public policy question, that government should be investing in experimental technologies?
Yes, because if the government will not take an initiative to invest in these ventures, the private sector of our economy will also not. So I think it's a move to show it to the economy, to the country as well, that yes, the private sector per se to invest in this sector, and at the end of the day, all the technological innovations are a result of a research. So yes, the expenditure in this sector is justified, and it is towards human capital investment, and yes, and a step towards inviting private partners as well.
Okay. Can you think of a growth model which you can relate to whatever you said right now? Is there any growth model which is coming to your mind?
Yes, that's the Romer model, where it talks about the research factors being the input, which actually leads to human capital investment is what we're talking about here.
Okay. Radhika, I think you have some work experience. Are you working currently?
Yes.
Where?
MasterCard.
Okay. So what is your profile exactly there?
I'm a consultant there.
Which sector? I mean, what are you looking at?
Yes, this is, a broad segment, but within that, I am working on the management side as well as some product developments. So it's a consultancy segment, if that's what you're talking.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is your motivation to join Indian Economic Services?
Yes, that was the first question when I asked before the preparation started. So essentially, 6 months into this organization, I realized that the kind of work that I'm getting in this organization, or even if I switch to different companies, the nature of my work will remain more or less this. This is nowhere related or in conjunction with economics or whatever I studied in the past 5 years. So that was my basis that I want to go back to my roots. I want to work in like anything that basically we can say policy making or the economic side that I've been studying, going back to my fundamentals. So that's when I started the preparation for this exam.
Okay. So that's it from my side. I'll ask the next panel member to take it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Nikita. Rishuka, can you go ahead with the next line of questions, please?
Okay. Hi, Radhika.
Hi, Rishuka.
So, a lot has already been asked from you. So, you talked about that you work with MasterCard. So, RBI imposed some regulatory restrictions on MasterCard last year. So, can you tell us what were they and how did it really impact the MasterCard business in India?
Yes, so last year, because of a compliance issue, RBI laid out guidelines that no more credit or debit cards of MasterCard will be issued. So essentially banning MasterCard from the economy. The issue was the transactional data was going out of India on soil. That is, we say that the requirement of RBI was that the transactional data of India should remain within India. So MasterCard was not complying to that, because of which we had almost a 1 year ban. And recently it has been lifted because now the compliance has been fulfilled.
Okay. What is MasterCard's share in the Indian market? Are you aware of that?
Um, it's very less, 20%, 20 to 30%, not more than that.
Is it higher than Visa or lower than Visa?
Lower than Visa for sure.
Okay. Okay. So, so Operation Twist was in news during COVID. So, have you heard about it? Like, can you tell us what it is?
Sorry, ma'am, I've not heard about it.
Okay, no problem. So, you talked about that certain production measures that government is taking, like manufacturing sector, to promote growth in manufacturing sector. Have you heard about production-linked incentive schemes and what sectors is it implemented in?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Sorry, ma'am, your voice broke.
Okay. So can you tell us about the production-linked incentive scheme that the government has launched and what sectors is it implemented in?
So production-linked incentive scheme, as the word says, that a directed investment or directed investment in different sectors so that we can boost our growth in those particular sectors. So one is the renewable energy sector, where a lot of emphasis is given on the hydrogen development. The other is the EV sector, where, and as I said, the FAME scheme, where it's about the rapid adoption of electric vehicles by the consumers. So that's one segment. The other sector could be the data and the technological side. I cannot recall the exact scheme name, but MSME sectors is one area where the government is giving these kind of incentives.
So what are the others? Can you name a few other schemes, like 2 or 3 maybe, that the government has implemented for MSME sector?
Not that I can think of it, ma'am, now.
Okay, not a problem. So, so for poverty, we talked about like a few questions back. So, what are the measures that the government has taken over the years to eradicate poverty? Like there has been a debate about the poverty numbers as well. So, what are the measures that the government has taken?
With poverty comes we have the midday meal schemes. We have Portion that talks about providing nutrition to poor people, meals. Then we have the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, where bank accounts are open, so that is inclusive of financial also, and that's like empowering them, giving them opportunity in the market, and uh, Pradhan Mantri Ann Yojana, Garib Kalyan Yojana. We have Manrega for them also. So I think these are the couple of schemes that will help alleviate poverty in India.
Okay. Uh, So, you talked about financial inclusion. So, the problem that the banks are facing is that it is very costly to have branches in villages because it's like it's high cost transactions for them. So, what do you think, or what do you suggest is a way out for government in such cases? Like brick and mortar branches are really expensive in villages. So, what is the way out? Or
So,
do you,
ma'am,
oh, sorry to cut you, but has the government done anything about that yet?
yes, I was coming to that only that the government has already thought about this, and there is something called Bank Mitra, where it's you can think of it as a digital branch. That is, there will be no people in that branch, but automated machines where basic banking services like depositing of money, withdrawal, passbook printing can be done by these rural areas. So this branch will definitely be a low cost operating and will give access to rural areas as well. So this is one initiative that the government has taken.
Okay, do you, at the top of your head, can you think of anything else that the government can do and is not doing? Like any such suggestion that you can think of that is implemented elsewhere and not?
We can not from exactly a banking perspective, but something like a farm pass. I'm looking this from an agricultural perspective. A farm pass is essentially a product also that's launched by MasterCard, and we are trying to enroll this with India as well. So this is like empowering rural people, especially farmers, by providing access to a card that does not require any internet. It's like something like a tap and pay kind of a thing, where you can buy and sell goods using that. It provides you with a platform also where you can find different sellers. So I think this could be one area through which they can enter into this financial ambit.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Radhika. So that's it from my side.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Radhika, I'll start with some line of question with respect to your DAF. Now, it states that you're from Delhi. Now, Delhi is undergoing elections. So, could you tell us a bit about this entire region of the municipal election? What has happened in the last few years? And what are the changes? Why were the elections postponed? And what's the new framework of the municipality or the local governance in Delhi?
So, governance in Delhi is done by three bodies essentially. The municipal bodies. One is the Delhi Cantonment Board, looks at the cantonment region. Then we have the New Delhi Municipal Council, looking at the New Delhi region, and then we have the MCD, which is known as Municipal Corporation of Delhi. Earlier, it was a trifurcation that it was three different separate bodies governing North Municipal, then West, and then East. So earlier there were three separate entities, and essentially now they have been clubbed back together. They were one first, then trifurcated, and they're back again. So this was the primary reason that the elections were postponed. So from the governance perspective, this was the reason. And if you talk about recent political issues around Delhi government, is the top hot issue right now is about pollution and how this because of stubble burning it is creating a havoc for the city, and how the government is unable to control. So there's backlashing from the opposition as well.
Okay, sure. Now, and in this entire, I mean, there's a lot of heated political debate, where a particular catchword has caught the attention of media, what is called as Revdi culture. So there is this debate from every opposition party coming up with sops for winning elections. So are you aware about this Revdi culture, and what is your take on freebies? Are they welfare oriented? Should they be allowed, or should there be any kind of check on them?
Okay, so Reverie culture is synonymous to freebies only, and this was a topic that was highlighted by our Prime Minister. Basically, again, backlashing our current Chief Minister, which is Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, that how he's giving out electricity, water on very subsidized rates, which is not at par with what other states are offering, and then a lot of emphasis on schools, government schools. So, according to the Prime Minister and this entire freebie debate, it's about that how this expenditure is a wasteful in the sense that it's not sustainable, and it will not provide any opportunities, any employment, any development or future revenue stream. This is like revenue expenditure, which will only add to the fiscal deficit of the state or the territory. So, looking from a national perspective, also again, these freebies are essentially commodities. Could be as simple as giving out television, giving out geezers for that matter across the country to lure people to vote for a particular party. So yes, this is like a drain from taxpayers' money. This is not giving any result in the future. So yes, that is the bottom line of this. That welfare could be something like what Mr. M.K. Stalin did about food providing. Like we have midday meal scheme, he provided breakfast meals. So things like these are justified where you're actually providing nutrition, food, but commodities are not justified, and that's just wasteful.
But despite all of these promises which the Delhi government has done, they have implemented all these schemes. Yet, what is the state of Delhi's finances and how are they managing all of this?
Um, right now, Delhi has a 40,000 crore debt, and that's a huge number. So, finances are built on borrowings again. And yes, because these promises have been made, the government is trying to fulfill that, and it's adding to the deficit. That's all I can say.
Okay, fair enough. Now, since you also work in MasterCard, there's a lot of debate about data localization, money transfer, which might be allowed. In fact, yesterday only, our CGI had mentioned that data privacy is not an elitist construct. So, could you elaborate on the data bill if you have read through it, what it talks about, what are its major points, and if there are any shortcomings in your view?
So yes, the data protection bill that's been on the table to discuss. It's about that how, as you said, that data privacy should be access to everybody, and again, it's not elitist thing that some of the entities should have access to it. And given that the OTT platforms, the social media platforms are access to a lot of data from us, it should be the user's choice, especially the data that gets collected from mobile phone activities. So it should be the choice of the user what kind of data he or she wants to share, and he or she should know where the data is actually being used. So the bill talks about all of this. The one drawback of this is that this particular bill talks about some exemptions that the government fiduciaries they call will have, where they will not tell, or they will not be exposed at what kind of data they're collecting and what they're using for. I think that is one part of the debate which is heated right now, the government fiduciaries.
That leads me to another interesting concept where individuals have control over data. Could you elaborate on what Web 3.0 is?
I don't know, sir. Sorry.
Okay, no. Then you might be aware that the football season has just taken off. So the football World Cup is right now being held. Now, uh, there is massive expenditure that happens whenever a football event or some kind of a sporting event is organized. Do you think India should be hosting such events in future, or do you think that, say, India should bid for a future football World Cup in India?
Yes, for sure. If a country like Qatar can build the infrastructure, we have in the past also conducted Commonwealth Games, and this that actually led to a lot of development in Delhi, and that was one what you can say phenomenal experience, and that led to excessive employment opportunities also. Given that G20 presidencies and a lot of things are coming to Delhi, hosting a football World Cup in future is something that we can definitely think of. We have the infrastructure also.
Okay. Coming to the G20 summit that you had just talked about, there is this trioca which is mentioned that there is this trioca word that is being used. Could you elaborate on the trioca and what all pointers, what will be the key highlights, or what are the issues that India should place on the global forum when now that it has assumed the presidency?
Okay, so Troika essentially means that a country is all who conducted the G20 president in the past, the one who's conducting right now, and the one that will conduct in the next year. So the current Troika is Indonesia, Bali, where the G20 summit happened this year. Next is India, taking the presidency, and the next will be Brazil. So this troika is in talk because all the three countries are developing the emerging economies. So there's a lot of talk about that how they will kind of be the flag bearers of all the developing countries in the world and bring out the issues that are important for you can say the global south. So India's got the presidency, I believe, in a very crucial point in time. So there should be a lot of focus upon how IMF, World Bank, and the Asian Development Bank could invest in these environmental resources. Because recently we had the COP27 where they talked about loss and damage fund. There was a talk about it, but at the end of the day, who will actually fund it or how the fund will come about, there is no talk of that. So I think that's the area where IMF, World Bank, all these international organizations which have a lot of fund could come into the picture. They can help the developing countries and the emerging economies in funding these green projects. So this is one area where India can talk about. The other is this entire G20 will have around 100 to 200 meetings. So India can host this across states and kind of promote ecotourism, show to the world what we are capable of, how the culture, how the diversity or the geography of the India is. So that will boost tourism in future. The next is talking about collaboration in terms of digital innovation. India has turned out to be immensely innovative in the perspective of introducing Aadhaar card, eKYC, we have digital rupee cropping up, UPI. So G20 could be a platform where India can present it to the world and urge them to take, these kind of innovations also. So that will bring India as an innovator also. Next is definitely collaborating with different countries. It's international platform. So inviting a lot of investors and telling them the potential of India could be another area where India can focus on.
Okay. So my last question is with respect to transmission of monetary policy. I want you to elaborate on how the monetary policy transmission happens. The second part of the question would be, is it broken in India? Is the transmission broken in India? And my third part of the question, same question, is that was RBI behind the eight ball curve with respect to tackling inflation?
Could you repeat the third part of the question, please?
Was RBI behind the eight ball curve with respect to tackling the inflation? Did RBI do too little too late when inflation was peaking its head?
Okay, the first part of the question, that's monetary policy transmission. So this essentially means that when RBI leverages some monetary policy tools, makes changes. For instance, monetary policy tools are the rates, bank rates, repo rates. So when RBI tries to change them, how long does it take to actually affect the economy? For instance, the motive of the RBI was right now to tighten the money supply in the economy. For that, it tried to raise repo rate. So for that, when actually repo rate rises and how it is transmitted to first commercial banks and how they pass on it to the customers and how the trend in the economy changes is what monetary policy transmission is. There is a lag. Once the decision of a policy is taken and when it actually happens in the economy or the effects of it starts to happen. So right now, what India is facing is that despite multiple increases in repo rate, yes, there has been a curve inflation. The current month, the last month, I'll say, the inflation has come down. But yes, it is not as significant as expected. But yes, it's working in the system. But due to the current scenario with excessive inflation, unemployment on one end, it's not that efficient. So that efficiency matters because right now, obviously, there is no free flow in the economy. Uh, Talking in terms of was RBI too late? I do not believe that RBI was too late because there is this kind of decision does not really happen overnight. So with a lot of calibrations, I believe that RBI has taken and gradually taken so that the economy does not get a hit and goes into recession. So I think it was a thoughtful plan, and that's max what RBI could do.
Okay, great. So thank you, Radhika. You had a good interview. We'll give you the reviews later, and let's connect after the session. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.